you know, fantasy football could be hard for some people, and for others, they do pretty well. And what I want to do today is I want to show you guys, how you can really come out with some good teams, and what you should be looking at, in your drafts. As we do this, I'm going to be drafting my own team. Okay, it's a 10-team league. It's a winners league in Yahoo. Last year I won the winners league. This year I'm going back to win it again. I'm going to give you guys a pick-by-pick breakdown of kind of what I'm looking at, how I'm drafting, and what is on the board and what I could possibly get, why I'd be thinking that way. And I think it's going to be a helpful video for a lot of people that are drafting this weekend and that are going to be drafting coming up as we get ready for the football season. Alright guys, and in case you didn't know, my name is the talented Mr. Taco. I'm out here for the repping the TDS. Okay, you see us right there. But yeah, we cover fantasy sports a lot. Fantasy football is one of our favorites. We like to give you guys strategies and tips for drafting your teams, for getting the best lineups, and for producing the most points for your season. Okay, right now I had the second pick in the draft. Okay, and with the second pick, I did end up with Saquon Barkley. I ended up with Miles Sanders with my second pick, and I took Austin Ekeler with my third pick. So I have 3 running backs. That means my flex is filled. So obviously right now, I'm going to be looking at wide receivers. Terry McLaurin just went off, who I was very interested in. And this leaves me in a situation where I have some pretty good wide receivers left. I'm just going to take a quick peek at wide receiver. And if you see these guys here, I like Woods a lot. Woods is kind of low to me if you're asking me. He's the guy that I'm going to be looking to in a lot of leagues. I really like Calvin Ridley a lot. So I'm going to actually get me a share of Robert Woods. I just think he's too far down. Like, to me, that's kind of criminally low. I think he's going to get a lot of volume over there. We're seeing Cooper Kupp has an injury. To me, that's a great play, especially as a wide receiver 1, knowing that I could possibly get Calvin Ridley on the way back, or DJ Chark or DK Metcalf. Juju was there. Juju does have some upside with Ben Roethlisberger. I do like Juju, but at the end of the day, I do think that Woods could possibly be better. I like his upside there, and I really like Calvin Ridley here. So for me, this is a win-win. I have Saquon, I have Miles Sanders, I have Austin Ekeler as my top 3 picks. I'm looking at Calvin Ridley, and I'm looking at Robert Woods as my top 2 wide receivers, and I'm feeling pretty satisfied. I'm going to be shooting for another wide receiver probably with the next pick. There's quarterbacks and tight ends that are going to be available. If we're looking at the tight ends, I see Zach Ertz, I see Higbee, I see Hunter Henry, Waller, Hurst. I really like Hurst a lot. I like Fan a lot. I like Waller. Even Ertz is interesting to me, especially if I'm able to get him on the way back around, which I'm not too sure I will, because there was 15 picks until I pick again. So it'll be interesting to see what exactly is left for me. At running back, I'm not worried. I don't have to do anything. So if I do see a quarterback that I love at a great price, I'll be able to do that. And when I'm looking at all these wide receivers that I see coming later up, I'll definitely be in a good position to grab them and not really worry. 1, about my running back position because I have 3 absolute studs, but 2, about my wide receiver position because I'll be deep enough where I'll be able to play enough guys, or one of these 4 or 5 wide receivers that I have will hit. The question right now for me is really going to be, where do I take a quarterback and where do I take a wide receiver? That's going to be probably one of the big keys to this team. For quarterback, I think it's super interesting in a 10-team league. There is no rush to get one because I know there's going to be some really solid guys, either that are going to be at the end of the draft or that are going to be on the wire, which gives me more of a shot to take these high-end running backs and wide receivers early to put me in a position where I don't have to necessarily go to the wire for those positions where they may be a little bit harder to find. But that's just right now my thought process in regards to this draft, what I'm thinking about and how I see it. As far as it goes right now, we're looking at about 10 picks until we go again. And I would love it if a DK Metcalf came down to us. T.Y Hilton, I'm totally, vibing with. Deshaun Watson's interesting there. Marquise Brown is interesting there. Devontae Parker is interesting there. There's a lot of guys that have good potential. Cam Akers, I'm scared about because as of today, we know Leonard Fournette just got cut from the Jags, and I don't know where he's going to end up. And a guy like this, in a situation like that, it's very possible that we could see Leonard Fournette come over and become the main back. But we just got to see. There's 9 picks till us, and we'll come back in a couple minutes and give you the breakdown. All right, guys. Well, things just got interesting with 3 picks until we go. We just saw guys like DK Metcalf and Deshaun Watson just come off the board. What's the biggest shocker, I feel like, is that Raheem Mostert went with pick 51, which to me is kind of low or kind of high, if you ask me. And then we saw Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson go picks 45 and 46. So we're seeing some of these top-flight quarterbacks come off the board already. If we're looking at quarterbacks right now, woo, it got late early, if you ask me. So it's not that many quarterbacks that I'm sitting here really feeling the need to jump for. If I look at the quarterback position, Matt Ryan is a super solid option, but I wouldn't take him around here, which is the 57th pick overall. Josh Allen, they're talking about they want him to pass more, run less. That's not very interesting for me, which means that I'm going to be fading that. But looking at tight end is just taken. So now this is super interesting that I'm watching a guy like Cook come off the board early. That's super, super interesting. All right, so now from what we see here, a decent amount of running backs. Ronald Jones is interesting. Keenan Allen could be that number 1 receiver over there. Devontae Parker won't offer a timetable. We don't know what kind of injury that is. That scares me. I do love T.Y. Hilton right here, especially with the 6th pick as that safe, solid wide receiver to go with this. But also Marquise Brown has a ton of upside over there. But I'm going to go with Hilton just because at wide receiver, since we had gone Woods and Ridley, and we have 3 super solid running backs, I want to make sure that at wide receiver, I have people that can play alongside them to maximize my points, since we already saw a lot of the good tight ends and quarterbacks go. The fact is, if there was a good quarterback there, if Deshaun Watson was there, that's probably where I would be going. Or if a Kyler Murray was there, that's probably where I'd be going. Now, the last 2 guys that just came off are Keenan Allen and Matt Ryan. So it puts me in a position, again, where I'm looking at either tight end or wide receiver, I would say. Quarterback, I'm not going to reach for one there. Darren Waller is super, 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 super interesting to me. I feel like he kind of slipped a little bit right here. Yeah, I mean, I think just to be safe and not sorry, we're going to take Darren Waller and have a tight end on the squad, full well knowing that we can take another tight end later on and double down on it and make sure that we have good players at tight end and maximize our point production. Because in my opinion, I do think that Darren Waller was the clear top tight end right at that point. Especially like Hunter Henry just came off the board now. You have guys like Ingram, Hurst, I really like. Noah Fant. But all these guys are kind of a risk. I don't know exactly what Hurst is going to produce. In this lineup, already having solid players everywhere, I want to get the most safe and secure player that I can get, and that's why I went with Waller. I saw him do it last year. There's a bunch of wide receivers that are potentially coming up for the Raiders, but we don't know exactly what we're going to get there. I know that Waller is a pretty safe bet at this point in the draft, and again, I'm going to get someone else later on just to cover my bet on that, just to make sure that I'm safe and try to maximize my points here, especially considering that I was looking to go quarterback with the last pick, and a lot of the top guys that I would be looking for were gone. Now, one player that I'm looking at, or 2 players that I'm looking at as they're coming back, I like Parker, I like Brown, I like Gallup. All 3 of these guys are super interesting to me. Ronald Jones, I would love it if he comes back around. Kareem Hunt is a solid player as well, who, in case, let's just say, Chubb goes down, he could become a number 1 for the team. So that's a solid hold right there. Tyler Boyd and Fuller, I'm hearing great things about both of them. I'm super impressed with hearing that Joe Burrow and Tyler Boyd seem to be having a great chemistry and connection in the preseason, which is leading me to want to go with Boyd over Green and making Boyd raise on my draft boards. And he's someone, as we go into this week, that I'm really looking at seeing if I can nab him at the later rounds and be able to get extreme value at him, because when Boyd is producing, or when Boyd has a good quarterback, he can produce, and we've seen him put up numbers. And I think that he's someone who could be really valuable this season, especially if you're getting him in, let's just say, for me, this is going to be my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This would be your 8th pick. To get a guy like that with your 8th pick that has tremendous upside, where they could be a number 1 possibly for your team, that's exactly what you're looking for in these later rounds. And I think that's exactly why you go running back early in most cases. It's just because there's so much more volume left at wide receiver, especially in the middle to late rounds, that you don't have to rush for the running backs, where there's a lot more question marks around them. There's a lot more usage issues that you have to worry about, and they get hurt a lot easier. So all around, it's just a lot more risk involved. Okay, but for the most part, things are going good. I'm just seeing another quarterback go off the board. So Matt Stafford just go off the board. These are the available quarterbacks that are left, which is kind of shocking to me that all these quarterbacks are already gone. Brady has the potential to be pretty good this season. So does Ben. So does Aaron. So does Mayfield. So does Jones. So does Goff. So does Newton. I just can't see me picking a quarterback here again. I think this draft board is illustrating to me that, as much as I like quarterback, these guys aren't going to be taking backups. They aren't going to be taking doubles. So I can wait on some of these guys. I know I'm going to get someone good. I like Daniel Jones still. I like Ben Roethlisberger. I like Cam Newton. I'm not worried about quarterback. Even if I end up with 2 of these guys and then have to go to the waiver wire and start playing matchups, I'm not as worried about that. In this draft, Michael Gallup and Ronald Jones just went, 2 guys that I was very interested in. There's 2 more picks left until us. I am thinking that probably Boyd would be the pick here, just from everything that I'm hearing. Will Fuller I do like a lot too. At running back, I think that I would probably grab another guy just a little bit later on, or start playing the wire, because between the 3 guys I have, 2 of them would start every week. And one would be in flex. So, in flex weeks, I'll be able to use these extra wide receivers in that position. And especially because I didn't take the top wide receivers earlier, I want more shots at a breakout wide receiver so I can optimize my points. That's pretty much my whole philosophy behind, waiting on a quarterback right now and waiting on taking another running back, is just because the upside between a guy like Parker and a guy like Boyd and a guy like Fuller is just too great at this point in the draft. They become almost league winners, at least in my opinion. And I'm going to take Boyd first. I just love his upside, and I love hearing the good things with Joe Burrows. That to me really excites me, and it makes me really, 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 really excited to see what's going to happen over there in Cincinnati, because they have a lot of pieces between A.J. Green, Tyler Boyd, John Ross, Joe Mixon. They have a lot of different pieces, and if they can just get it together, they could be an all right team. They could be a team that you definitely have to look out for and contend with. Now, with this next pick, it's super hard for me, but this guy's hurt already, and we just don't know what's going to happen. So that would lower me on Parker. Montgomery has a grain issue. Breida and Howard, for all we know, they could lose their jobs. Landry is crazy because he just came off the injury. He puts up a lot of points, but so could Fuller, and Fuller has more of an opportunity at target share, I feel like, because there's not anyone there that's going to hold him back like a OBJ and with the Browns. So I'm going to take Fuller here just because his upside is tremendous. I love his big play capability. He may get hurt during the season, but because I have already T.Y. Hilton, Boyd, and Fuller, with Calvin Ridley and Woods, I'm not as worried about him getting hurt, which makes it, to me, I take that risk. Now, some things that I'd be looking at adding in another running back to the squad, getting that third running back. So kind of figuring out who could be this sneaky player that we go with is going to be one of the big questions of the draft. I think that Chris Thompson is someone that I do like later on in these drafts. Bryce Love, we just don't know what's going to happen in Washington, though, with the fact that we know that, Leonard Fournette is now a free agent, and they don't have a running back, and I believe they second shot on him on wires. I'm hearing good things about Damian Harris. Kerryon Johnson could be the starter to start the season. Let's see here. DeAndre Swift and Montgomery are still there. If on the comeback around Montgomery's there, it becomes interesting. He's expected to miss 2 to 4 weeks. Puts him against the season opener, but should be at the very... See now this becomes interesting to me. Since he's not ready and he's falling, would I be able to get him at the discount? And Swift, now that Swift is falling, I'm more interested in him, especially if he comes back around with the next pick. Not having that fourth running back, it becomes something very possible that I could do. If we go back to quarterbacks, these quarterbacks are all still there. There's still tons of quarterbacks that I could still rock with, including Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Daniel Jones, Ben Roethlisberger, Joe Burrow, Cam Newton, Ryan Tannehill. All those guys have starter potential for me in this kind of a league. And then if I'm looking at tight ends, Hayden Hurst is a guy that I really do like, and I would be interested in taking him possibly on the come around. But I also do like Noah Fant, so that'll be interesting. Maybe the only change that I would make in this draft is instead of drafting the tight end, drafting the quarterback. But at that point in the draft, there was only guys like Josh Allen and Matt Ryan available. Matt Ryan really doesn't run enough for me to love Matt Ryan or to take Matt Ryan that high. I like the idea of having multiple. There goes Swift. Swift just came off the board, so he's a guy that we can't look at right there. Landry's still there, though, which is super interesting. But, with getting another running back, now it's going to be more of a situation where we're going to be looking at the guys here, and we're going to look at a guy that could possibly win the job now as our first backup bench guy. But because of that, I'm not really worried about reaching on a running back, because a lot of these guys I feel like will still be there after our next pick, because we pick in 8 picks right now. So the main thing that I think that I'm going to be gunning for, this may be a good spot to take Tom Brady, just because that offense could be absolutely insane. But there's some good wide receivers left, man. There's some wide receivers that I really like. I think Crowder could be really good. I think Marvin Jones has some good upside. I'm hearing good things about Deontay Johnson, but I'm hearing a lot of things about Chase Claypool as well. So it's interesting to see who's going to dominate at the wide receiver position over there for Pittsburgh, especially behind Juju, which is the only reason why with Juju I kind of was like fading him, or at least in comparison to the guys that I took, because I took Woods and Ridley there over a guy like Juju. Is I just think some of these young guys that are coming up, they present the opportunity to eat into his target share. And that kind of scares me a little bit. Whereas Woods, I know that Kupp is hurt to start the season or experiencing a little bit of issues. And there's no Cooks from last year. So all of that just gives me the opportunity to think that, he has a position to blow up. Hayden Hurst just came off the board, and Mike Gesicki, so a tight end. We're seeing some of these guys go already. So this puts us in a position where we're going to be looking at, taking, one of these guys probably just a little bit later on. But for right now, I think if we look at the overall board, Tom Brady is just screaming more and more to me. And there goes Tom Brady. Boom. So now we're in a position, because all these quarterbacks are long gone. And what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Man, this is a position that I didn't expect to be in, but I'm not upset about. And I kind of put myself in this position. I really thought Tom Brady could have lasted there. But if not, I'm looking at some guys here, but at this point in the draft now, I don't need to necessarily reach on them. And to me, with this pick, Zach Moss is interesting. Zach Moss is super interesting to me. Like, I just think I'm probably going to end up going running back. And then I'll wait to see what quarterbacks are left after that. And I'll just stream quarterbacks if I have to. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get enough guys with enough upside and enough potential that I don't have to really worry about it. I mean, I love hearing that, especially in that offense. To me, Gus Edwards is nothing to really fear. Mark Ingram's an older guy who can definitely get hurt at any time. That's just a great opportunity for Dobbins to start taking over and become the main back. I definitely like that upside there. And then to me, Zach Moss is probably going to be... See, there's just so many backs over there in New England that it's just impossible to know what's going on. Chase Edmonds is right there. Yeah, I think Zach Moss as well could be getting undersold as well. And I do love his upside, so I'm going to take Zach Moss right there. We have 4 picks left for the team. So looking at that, kicker and defense and quarterback would probably be some of the positions, and then I'm going to either be looking at taking a defensive tight end or defensive quarterback and just seeing who we roll with each week. At this point, from what everyone did at quarterback, I'm not reaching. I'm going to take these guys that are here. I'll make do with the wire and just playing matchups. So I'm not really worried. But it's going to be interesting to see how this picks or how this draft ends up. So we'll be back in a bit, and we'll break it down the last couple picks. All right, guys, it's 2 picks until our turn. We updated the roster on the right-hand side for you guys so you can see who we have as we drafted them. We started off running back heavy. We went Barkley, Sanders, Ekeler. Then we went Woods, Ridley, Hilton. Then we went Waller. Then we got Boyd and Fuller. I just saw a quarterback go off the board in Cam Newton. We got J.K. Dobbins and Zach Moss. Let's looking at quarterbacks right here. So Cam is gone, which is a bit discerning to me. Golf is gone, and so is Aaron Rodgers. So definitely going to open up the possibility of possibly trading for a quarterback, but Daniel Jones was the guy that I was gunning for anyway. So it just makes sense that right here with the 119th pick, I'm going to take Daniel Jones. Boom, lock it up, lock it in, let me begin. I think Danny Dimes is going to be a stud this year. There are some reports from camp that have me a little bit worried about what's going on there, but I also think that Joe Burrow sounds really interesting to me. I love his upside. I love the fact that he runs. I love that he has a good arm. I love that he has good weapons. So I'm actually going to get some Joe Burrows, although I do like Ben a lot, and Elbow feels really good throwing. He's still taking a day off every so often to avoid general fatigue. Scrapped his regular season throwing. No pain to the elbow. Suggests Roethlisberger isn't healthy. Yeah, that's the thing. To me, Ben just has a ton of upside, in my opinion. And for that reason, I'm just going to take me some Ben Roethlisberger. Boom. Let's get it in. And then with our final 2 picks, we're going to take a kicker and a defense. I think the team came out really good. Our quarterbacks, we got 2 of them late. And then I see guys on the waiver wire that we'll be able to use and just, either fill in or play matchups, really depending on what's going on. I'm not particularly worried now about quarterback, especially in a 10-team league. Most of these guys are going to have pretty good rosters anyway, so then it's going to be really about who drafted, more top guys and able to put out more top guys at each position. For tight end, I would have liked to have gone 2 tight ends in this draft, but the guys that I would have taken, Noah Fant, he's gone. So in this position, I'm not worried about that. I like Chris Herndon. He's a guy that I could pick up off the waiver wire layer. Same thing with Hooper. Same thing with Hawkinson. These are guys who I think have good value. Guys that I can get off the wire and use them. But overall, I think Waller is the safest option there, which gives me a solid, point floor, because there's every single option where I have a possible high scorer. Including quarterback, where I did go Ben Roethlisberger and Daniel Jones. And again, one of the things with Daniel Jones in his final half of the season from weeks 8 to 17, he was a top 5 fantasy quarterback. And then for Ben Roethlisberger, the year before he got hurt, he was a top 3 fantasy quarterback. So both these guys have had potential, or not potential, but they've put up the numbers. They've scored. They've been scorers. They've shown that potential. And to take them that late, knowing that all the other guys that we have on the team, it just opens us up for a really good team, having a really good season. There's no position that we could say that we're weak at. Even our bench. In our bench, we have T.Y. Hilton, Boyd, and Fuller, plus Dobbins and Moss, hoping that one of these guys end up taking over the role at running back for their teams. I think we have 2 of the best young rookies that came out of this draft class that we can hope to lean on them for the second half of the season. So I think that's going to be something that's going to be really interesting to see how it goes and where we go with it. But yeah, I just want to thank you guys for watching and participating in the draft. All season long, we're going to be doing start sit. We're going to be doing waiver wire tips. We're going to be examining guys with target share issues or guys that are getting more volume than we thought, which can justify draft waiver wire considerations, and then those hard trade debates. All of that stuff we're able to help you guys out with. So definitely give a like and a subscribe to the channel. So this way we can make sure that we keep you guys, on top of your game and help you win your leagues. But I definitely want to thank everyone for their time, for being on board. And this is the talented Mr. Taco saying peace.